if you don't know Word Up, we're a bookshop and art space run by local residents, many of whom are volunteers. We can be found at 2113 Amsterdam Avenue at the corner of 165th Street in Washington Heights, New York. We host events for all ages and sell used and new books in English and Spanish. This summer, we actually just celebrated our 10th anniversary. So it's been very hectic, but very fun and rewarding. And definitely check us out at wordupbooks.com, where you can shop and see all our other virtual and outdoor events that we have. We're going to be closed next week, but we'll be back open Tuesdays through Fridays, 12 to 6 p.m. and Saturdays, 11 to 5 p.m. And I'm very excited to introduce the two authors and illustrators that we have today. So first we have Remy Lai. She's a student of fine arts with a major of painting and drawing. She was born in Indonesia and grew up in Singapore and currently lives in Brisbane, Australia, where she writes and draws stories for kids with her two dogs by her side, which she has one currently with her right now. She's also the author of the critically acclaimed Pie in the Sky, Fly on the Wall, and Picasso. And then we also have Alyssa Bermudez, who was born and bred New Yorker, living down under in Tasmania. She studied illustration and animation at the Fashion Institute of Technology for undergraduate and graduate courses. As an author, illustrator, and art teacher for students ages 5 to 75 plus, she strives to put the KA-POW in stories and learning while representing children of diverse backgrounds. Her illustrations can be found on fabric and fashion, in magazines, books, or even on stage. She's obsessed with dogs, books, live sketching, which we'll see a little later, mountain biking, traveling, and keeping plants alive. Welcome, Remy and Alyssa. Congratulations on the new book. We're very excited. And I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Carolina. Should we start, Alyssa?
Okay.
Okay. So congratulations on your new book. And so one of the first things that I wanted to ask you is because it's so great that we're both in Australia. It just happened that way. And then so I moved here for college and I stayed. So I wanted to know like your story, like how did you end up here?
Well, it's definitely a crazy story. So the long story short is that I went traveling. I went to Southeast Asia, Thailand, Laos, and Cambodia. Met a whole bunch of Australians when I was on that tour. And I never even knew anything about Tasmania. I would have never been able to find it on a map, that's for sure. And I met an Australian guy on this trip. We stayed in touch throughout the following year, and then I decided to move and focus on freelance, and it just kind of all felt kind of like the right timing to shift in my career and just to try something new and crazy, and here I am 6 years later. Still here in Tasmania. It's awesome. I love Tasmania. There's like a Tassie artwork above my head. That's like the mountain that we live under. And it's just a beautiful place. I love it.
That's so awesome. I haven't been to Tasmania, but one day.
Yeah. Definitely.
So,
yeah. You have to let me know.
Yeah, I will. And so your book is inspired by the actual diaries that you kept. So, and I know that as a kid, I kind of also kept diaries, but really sporadically. So I want to know if you still actually have these diaries. Did you keep them?
Yes, I did. Not only did I keep them, I have some of them here, but I also, like, when I moved to Tasmania, and like I just brought like 4 suitcases. And I knew that some of the stuff had to come in my carry-on because it was too risky to be checked in like checked luggage. I was like, there's no way I'm putting my diaries in in my checked luggage. So I brought like all my childhood diaries in my carry-on. I was like, I'm making a book out of this at some point, and I need to make sure that they're protected. So I do have quite a few of them here. Probably one of my favorite ones is this one with the Ricky Martin stickers all over it. And I also like filled the notebooks with pictures as well. So like even before I wrote on the pages, I like put a bunch of magazine cutouts in them. So this one is one of the funniest ones to me, I think. Love it.
That's super awesome. So you mentioned that because you took them because you knew that you were going to write a book based on them. So so tell me how like did you come to think that I'm going to write a book based on this?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really see it as a book at first. It was kind of like when I initially moved out of my mom's apartment, and we were going through things, and I was, putting things in storage or getting rid of stuff. And when I found them again, so it was maybe like 10 years ago, like I just started going through them, and like my mom and I went through them, for hours, just howling, laughing at some of the things that I wrote, and just like, it was just so funny at the time. So I started kind of sending them to other friends, and just sharing some of these diary entries individually. And so they didn't have like a thread that connected any of them together into a story or anything just yet. But I knew that I wanted to have something with them. So that was kind of like phase one. And then I was taking a comics class at FIT a few years later, and kind of when coming up with the content for what we were going to do a comics project on, I was like, I'm going to take my favorite diary entries and do something with this. And so I used that class as an opportunity to explore it a little bit further. And so that was kind of a few years later with it marinating in my mind. And yeah, still wasn't sure kind of what the story arc or anything would be yet, but I think getting the feedback and reassurance from classmates at the time too, they were like, if you like doing this, you should keep going. So I think that was encouraging for me to keep just, I guess, seeing where it was going to go. And once I moved here and was freelancing, I really wanted to, I guess I maybe first said like, it's going to be a graphic novel. Still don't know what it is, but it's going to be that at least. And so it just kind of kept developing, and I eventually created the story arc. And I think with me moving to Tasmania, I didn't really even consider the New York part of the story until I left, and I was like, wow, that actually is huge, and I don't know why I would have not focused on that before. And especially with 9/11, which we can talk about later, but I just didn't consider any of those things until I was separated from the city, and I guess saw it through a wider lens. So I'm glad that I took the time that I did to develop it and to find the storyline, and eventually write diary entries that I didn't actually have either. Like that kind of came later to fill it out, make it right, and make it more readable and more of a story.
That's fascinating. And then we talked a little bit backstage earlier about some of the people who are in your life, and then they made it into the book. So did you how much of them did you have to change? Did you change their names or?
I did, yeah. I changed everyone's names except for my mom, because she's referred to as mom. But yeah, everyone's name was changed, and a lot of the characters from that time, they're kind of like blended together. So nothing is like kind of exact. I guess the closest character that I didn't change as much about is the big crush of the story. He's kind of like as I remember it and as I wrote about it. I didn't want to change the things that I wrote about him, because it's just so funny, and yeah, that's exactly what I wrote. I actually had a separate diary just for writing about like crushes. And
could you show us the inside what it looks like?
yes. So I wrote like in my fancy handwriting. And like that was very very on purpose. It's like I didn't write about them for long, and then I ended up filling the diary with like regular writing too. But the
so
initial
cool.
intention, the initial intention was just for, you know, the crushes.
That's so cool. Okay,
And
so
yeah.
yeah, you mentioned earlier about September 11th. So how does it play a part in the book? Is it like a big? I mean, I've read the book, but so is it like, I know it's like it doesn't play a super big role in that it's not like an issue book or anything. So do you want to tell us more about that?
Yeah, you know, I didn't intend to write a 9/11 book basically, but I knew that it was an integral part in the story and in like the, you know, in the characters' growth as a young teen and, you know, gathering this perspective on the world. So I wanted to show the shift kind of, you know, it's kind of in the middle of the book when it happens, where everything that happens before felt really big, and, you know, all of these issues, the regular issues, the you know, getting good grades, worrying about, you know, my bubble, I guess my smaller bubble of things that affected my day-to-day life. And then when September 11th happened, and, you know, it affected our individual lives in this huge way, you know, at school and with my parents, and just the community and the energy in the city, everything changed after that. And it was a huge, I guess, catalyst in changing my perspective as a young teen. So I really wanted to showcase that in the book, with that kind of shift in worries and fears and resilience as well. So kind of how everything kind of came back to normal after that. And I think that kind of thing is relevant now, and well, important for kids to get a, you know, a unique perspective on the event, but also relevant now with such a unique time in history in a different way, where everything before, you know, the pandemic was different, and now, you know, we're living in this different world as well, and how we, you know, can cope with these things and bounce back and forth really. So it, you know, it does tell the story of 9/11 from the perspective, and you know, acts as that catalyst for change. That's my real intention with it, for kids to get this firsthand perspective on, and in a gentle way as well. Like, you know, you can see what's happening, but it's not, you know, horrifying.
So this is another one. So we talk a little bit about the process, about how you're reading your diaries, and then you thought that you wanted to do something with them. So, and then you attended the comics class. So for the actual process of creating the book, so did you like write a script first, or did you start out with drawings?
I did write a script. Oops, sorry, my dog is scratching. I did write a script, gathered, you know, all the diary entries, mined through them. Then I created some kind of a synopsis and a story arc of how it was all going to happen and in what order. And then I went kind of line by line and worked it out from there. So taking my diary entries and kind of, you know, rewording some of it. Some of them I kept exactly as they were, which was rare. There aren't a lot of those in the book, kind of like in their exact wording, but some of the lists are exact. Like there's this one, the things I want to do to change the world. This list is kind of exactly as I wrote it in my diary, including the asterisks. So it says number 7 is, you know, to stop acne and periods. And then the asterisk says, so important right now. To change that in the world immediately, please. And to make short people grow tall faster.
That's hilarious. So earlier you showed us a little bit about your diary where you have the pictures of people in there. So did you like doodle a lot in your diaries too?
I did some of them more than others. There are some like this one I think I took on a plane, and I have like some shoe. So a lot of shoe designs in Big Apple Diaries, and that's because I wanted to be a shoe designer as a kid, and I drew shoes constantly. Probably in my school notebooks as well. They were a big part of my life, the shoes, and I have this shoe book that I think my Aunt Debbie gave me when I was like 10. I still have it. And I'll use that as inspiration for our drawing demo.
That's awesome. So I think we talked a little bit about this part when we talked about September 11, but like so for me, when I'm writing my books, whenever I have to write like dad characters, I always find it kind of a little bit hard because I then have to think about my late dad. But for you, what were some of the harder parts to write or draw?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it's the same for me and my dad as well. And there was definitely a surprising part of the process for this book for me. Like when I wrote all of it, that was emotional, and knowing that I was making up dialogue from my father as well, like imagining conversations that we probably had at that time and stuff like that. So the writing was a challenge, and writing how I was going to show the 9/11 part of the story as well, and knowing what was coming, definitely a challenge. And then I kind of thought that all of the challenge was done. I was like, okay, it's written, and that's done. Emotional part over. And then when I started thumbnailing it and like developing the sketches and stuff like that, I was kind of hit with this wave of like, oh my gosh, I'm actually putting the pictures to this now. And it's like, I'm there, and I'm, spending all this time looking at research and, reference photos of things. And I mean, it was also kind of beautiful bringing my dad back to life in the book. So there was moments of joy with it as well. I think once I got over the heaviness of like, oh my gosh, I'm actually like drawing his face and stuff like that, then it kind of shifted into like, wow, this is actually quite special too. But yeah, drawing 9/11, very, very challenging. And it hit me. Like I just did not think that after the writing that I would be so affected again with the visuals. But yeah, it took a whole other world. And I think that's, with the power of comics, really, that you're kind of there in the moment with the character. And so, yeah, it's definitely, that was the biggest challenge of all, I think. And then once all the decisions were made and all the reference images were collected and everything was laid out, all the decisions were done, and the final art was probably the easiest part, where I was just like, let's just make it look great now, and I don't have to think about it as much anymore.
This is one last question from me. So how long would you say it took you from like writing to finishing like the final art?
Well, to get this book out in time for the 20th anniversary of 9/11, it was a bit of a fast-paced thing. At least for me, it was very fast-paced. This is my first long-form work. So I would say, I mean, I developed a rough manuscript before it was submitted and everything, but the real writing took place after that. So I would say it was a bit less than a year, maybe like 9 months or so, from like the writing to finish art, and back and forth to edit, the editor Connie, and the rest of the team. Don't want to leave everyone else out because there were so many people involved in making it happen.
Yeah, so now for the really exciting part, you're gonna show us some life drawing.
Yes, so I'll do some drawing. I have my setup here on the couch, so just bear with me as I try to make this look seamless, even though it's not my usual workspace. So I draw on a digital tablet, which is next to me. So I'll share my screen and I'll show you a little bit of how I would have created some of the artwork in Big Apple Diaries. So I'll draw some shoes for you, and I'll tell you what they're inspired by as well. Shoes throughout history. And yeah, so let me share my screen. Let's see. Alrighty, can everyone see? Where am I? Oh, sorry. Some shoes. Can you see me drawing?
Yes, I can.
Okay. That's not a drawing. Got it. Okay. So I like to work in a few different layers. And this is in Photoshop. So one of the first shoes that I think is really cool is this one. I think it's like a shoe from Turkey, like the early 1900s, and it has like a giant crazy platform. So I'll leave some space for that one. Then there is a big platform shoe. And when I was doing all my shoe designs, most of them had giant platforms. I like designing even some like rollerblades and crazy stuff with shoes. Yes, this one's going to be a rollerblade. Because why not? This kind of funky shoe shape from Venice. So, oh, and actually one of my favorite weird shoes. So let's see, I'm just gonna move all of these over. This was a crazy shoe that I saw in my shoe book. And I think it was designed for like a costume in an opera. And it actually has all the toes kind of like sculpted into the shoe. So I think it's fun to have a crazy one.
So your toes have to fit into those toes.
Yeah, I don't know how it would physically work. It would definitely not be comfortable. Oh, I love it. So I'm going to switch my tools and my color. I'm going to go into ink, and I'll zoom in a little bit. So basically,
did you also use Photoshop for Big Apple Diaries?
I did, and this is kind of the exact setup that I did, where I did things kind of rough sketching first, and then going on top and creating more of like the finished line. And this is like the main digital brush that I used for the book as well. Although I didn't draw on the couch when I was working.
Suddenly I have a question. Like you said you wanted to be a shoe designer. So what made you not want to be a shoe designer anymore?
Oh, good question. I found out that shoe designers don't just draw shoes all day. And that, was a devastating blow to me. And so shoe designers have to do a lot of other work than, just making awesome, crazy shoe designs that probably don't have any practical purpose in the world. And so with the drawing shoes in fashion, I think I realized that that was more what I wanted to do, the drawing aspect of it. So I ended up studying fashion illustration. I was like, yep, that's more of what I actually want to do, the drawing part, not kind of working with textiles and
Right.
practicality of things. And I like the non-practical element of a platform rollerblade. That's why not. Like rollerblades have like big buckles.
It needs the brakes at the front.
Oh yeah, these are like non-breaking.
Oh no.
Not a very safe. Not about safety. It's just about looking awesome. Yeah, none of these would be very comfortable. This one has like lots of ruffles.
So you have like the second book coming out, right? Are you allowed to talk about that or not?
I think so. Yeah, it is. It's in progress. It's happening. I'm up to the thumbnailing part of it, which is quite difficult for me. The thumbnailing part is definitely the hardest part, and it's a continuation of my diaries, but a lot of the entries are more fictionalized than it from my actual diaries from that time.
Mm-hmm. So if you're doing thumbnail now, is it for 2023?
Yeah, 2023.
Yeah.
So we've got to wait a long time.
Yeah.
That's the thing with graphic novels. They take forever.
Oh, we have a question asking what is the thumbnail part? What is the thumbnail part? Do you
Yeah, well, so the thumbnail part is when I sketch out the whole book. So kind of going from like a Word document into the layout of figuring out for me what words go on each page, what the pacing is, how many panels are on each page, and just figuring out kind of how the whole thing gets laid out and what pictures are going where. I also have to start planning for, what I guess reference images that I need and stuff like that. So it's the most kind of thought intensive part of the whole thing.
Yeah, I think that so too. Like when I have to lay out pages,
well.
I feel like after laying out 5 pages, I'm like so tired.
Yeah, it's a lot. What kind of process do you have with your graphic novels?
I think similar. So I work from a script too, and then I don't. So are your thumbnails like just really rough, tiny sketches?
Yeah, super rough, extremely rough. And then I guess before I send it out, I will adjust it a little bit just to make it more, I guess, readable to the editor. So it's not just me that knows what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, that's what I do too.
Yeah, like the initial ones would just be like completely unreadable to anyone. But gosh, now my nephew did request a shoe that was blue and pink, so we'll have that one. That one's for Alex.
Oh, so talking about colors, so Big Apple Diaries is 2 colored. So what's the decision behind that instead of like a full color?
Well, I guess like there are a few reasons. I feel like blue was a really nostalgic color that worked well, and I knew that it needed to be more than one color, but I didn't imagine that I would be able to do kind of full color in the time frame that we had. And I just feel really comfortable working in that limited palette, and I think it was a good choice for a diary format.
Yeah.
As well, to just have it kind of feel like sketches on a page, and I guess capturing the nostalgia of it worked kind of well. But yeah, I've never worked in a 2-color format, I guess, and like my file setup was confusing to me initially. So the next book it'll have more colors, but it'll still look quite limited. This Turkish shoe, I feel like it was a wooden shoe, so I'm painting that like a wooden color. And this is one of my favorite coloring in brushes that I use in Big Apple Diaries, so it just kind of feels like a marker on the page as well. Like,
yeah.
I guess the feeling of it being done by hand, which I enjoyed. So that's kind of how I put things like this together. We'll add some color to this before we open up to questions. I feel like the original shoe for this one, each platform layer was a different color.
That would be cool.
Would be a fun one. I don't want you guys to
So
watch.
do you wear platform shoes?
I don't, but I really love seeing them. I think they're so fun. And yeah, I guess it probably would have been my dream when I was 13 to have lots of shoes like this. Now I'd probably prefer to be comfortable. But I appreciate the design and the artistry involved. What about you? Any platform shoes in your life?
No. So I don't even have heels really. I like to draw like shoes, like crazy shoes too. But yeah, I like comfort, and I have kind of like an ankle injury. So every time I just look at platform shoes, I feel like, oh, I'm so like I can feel my ankle like going.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's not worth it. You just look at them.
Yay.
Well, there are some crazy shoes. My personal favorite's definitely the one with the weird toes. Love it. Well, I'm gonna stop sharing and let's see. Oh, am I back?
Yes, you are. That's super awesome. I need to give a clap.
Thanks.
I think. Are you ready for the Q&A?
Yeah, I love it. Let's do it.
Let's have Carolina come back.
Hi.
Carolina.
Yes, a round of applause. That was beautiful. I loved all those shoes. I love platform shoes and all crazy colors. So that like speaks to my heart. But yeah, we have a few questions, and audience, please feel free to keep adding more questions as we continue our conversation. But yeah, one of the first questions comes from Morgan. Do you have a favorite scene or spread from the book?
I do. I have a few favorite spreads, but one of my favorites is the night of September 11th, when standing on the roof and just kind of looking at the downtown area. And this one was special to me, especially because I asked so many people from my life at that time, kind of what they remembered about that day, about, you know, the following days. And so many people said that they remembered going to the roof that night and, you know, and just looking and seeing everyone else on their rooftops as well. So this one to me just felt really reflective of that shared experience that so many other people had as well. So definitely a favorite of mine. That's page 191. Thanks, Morgan.
The second part to Morgan's question was, what's been your favorite reaction to the book so far from friends, family members, etc.? Yeah.
That's been the best. It's been like the best week ever, just with, you know, the messages that I've been receiving from the real life characters in the book, and also like people that went to the school as well, and, you know, aren't a specific character in the book, but they remember all of those things too. And, you know, hearing from people that went to St. Ignatius, you know, 20 years ago, it's just crazy and amazing. So those have been some of my favorite reactions. And you know, my mom's reaction was definitely important as well, because she's in it and it's her story. She's read it in advance, so I already kind of knew her reaction to it. But yeah, getting all the messages this week is so special to me. It's just amazing.
A question for both of you, but what's the most exciting part of the publishing process? I know I'm very interested as a bookseller, just knowing how it is like on the author illustrator end.
Oh, I don't know. It's hard. I mean, it's all so exciting and it can be really overwhelming, but I mean, I've had my work published before as an illustrator, but this is my first time with my words being published, and with it being so personal, being my own story. I definitely felt pretty overwhelmed at times with that, but also really excited to share. Like, you know, I wanted to share it, so it's been important. But it has been really exciting to receive like strangers' feedback as well. Like, I guess it was one thing for my friends and family to be like, yeah, you're awesome. And then for people in the public to be like, oh yeah, this is, you know, an authentic story that, you know, is important. That's been really meaningful and encouraging, you know, for me to keep going. What do you think, Remy?
I feel like I'm wrecking my brain to think of it. Like I think all the parts of it, and like when people say what's the most exciting part, it feels like you're asking for like a one moment. And I feel like publishing is a really long process, and it's hard to find a moment. A moment could be months long. But if I have to find like one, I mean, I really enjoyed like working with the editor. I never thought that like being an author would be that collaborative. I just didn't think it would be, but it is. And I love that. But if I had to pick like a moment, maybe receiving my check.
Yeah.
Getting paid to draw and write. It's super awesome.
Totally agree. Like that's for real. Like we wouldn't be able to do it without that. Really, so important. I actually can think of a moment now that was really special in this process, and that was when I was on submission for it, and I was actually in China, and so it was kind of a crazy time that I was away, and I was doing illustration work for a children's show in China, which was crazy, and I can't even believe that happened with the world that we're living in now. But so I had a call with the editor to discuss, and like I knew that the phone call was coming, and we were changing locations. So like we moved from one hotel to another, and I was like, okay, I'm going to call her from this next hotel. And in the hotel room that I was staying in, I had 3 pictures above my bed, and one of the pictures was of the Twin Towers. And I was like, oh my God, this is really, really weird. First of all, and then second of all, just like crazy kind of serendipity that I was, talking to the editor about this book. And Connie, the editor, she told me that she had been to that city in China as well. And we were just like, this is really, meant to be, something's happening here. And that moment was really, really special to me, that just all felt right and everything was aligned. So that was an amazing moment.
We have a question from Rebecca. They ask, what are some things you had to cut from the diary that you struggled with cutting?
One of my favorite diary entries got cut, and it's totally reasonable that it got cut because it wasn't really pushing the story any further, but it was just one of the funniest entries that I ever wrote about. And that's why I put it in, because I think I just had an attachment to that diary entry. But I do have a separate comic about that entry, and it's called The 14 Steps. And it's basically a diary entry about how I was dared to touch a boy's hair, and I was too overwhelmed by that. I was like, I was a very shy kid as well. So like, this was a big deal. And I wrote in my diary the 14 steps that it took for me to be able to do that dare, because it was like so overwhelming. And the 14th step was, said I like took a deep breath and then smelled my hand. That was step 14. So I wanted to put that really embarrassing one in there, but it didn't have a place. So that was cut. And there were plenty of other things that were cut too.
Oh, that's so sweet. I have to look that up and like read it because I'm very excited. I remember that feeling. Carolyn asks, what comes after the thumbnailing process? I know there was a question about what thumbnailing was and you explained it, but yeah, it's very interesting knowing about all this like drawing, illustrating, back end things,
Yeah, so the thumbnailing, everything looks really, really a bit rough and chaotic, and then after that it goes back to the editor, and we have a bit of back and forth about the pacing and whether things need to be squished together more or spread out more for emotional impact. And then after that I go kind of like what I was doing with the shoes, is going over my drawings with a black digital inker, and kind of lock in the placement and get more of the details with the line work. Then I fill in certain shapes black, so anything that's black in the book I would have colored in black, and then there's kind of a layer underneath with the blues and the grays, kind of bringing it to life. So and for that process, it's all the kind of sketches underneath. So I already have a plan and everything. So for the final art, I get to just like turn music on and have fun and get it done as fast as possible.
Remy, what's your process?
Yeah, I think it's pretty similar to Alyssa's process. Yeah. Nothing to add there. Pretty similar.
Did you both grow up reading graphic novels, or is this kind of something you fell into and really love now?
I'll go first. I didn't read graphic novels growing up at all. I thought that comics was a genre. I didn't realize that within comics there was every genre possible. So I just never, I guess, had access to it. It probably wasn't valued at the school I went to either, to be honest. And so I didn't come across them until I was in college, and I saw lots of memoir comics, and I was just like blown away that I'd missed like a whole portion of my reading life. And memoir comics have always, like, since then I read as many as possible. I just love them, and it's such an amazing way to tell a story and to tell a personal and a true story in an imaginative way. So memoir comics for me, always my favorite. Love it. What about you, Remy?
I grew up reading comics exclusively. My parents they didn't really like place any restrictions on what we read, and so obviously when given a choice, books with pictures and books without, we went to the books with pictures, and so then we just read that exclusively. And then maybe only when I was about 10, then I started reading prose books. But then I think even now I read mostly graphic novels, comic books.
Yeah, me too.
Do
you have any recommendations?
Oh, I'll go. So
My
this one is a pretty old book. This is called Bone.
Oh, wow.
It's really thick, but that's because but Scholastic now has one that comes out in the smaller volumes and colored, but this is an old volume that I have. It's still black and white, but Scholastic now has the colored one. But I've read this too many times.
Wow, that's amazing. I love like the heftiness of that book. That's awesome. I'm reading mostly like middle grade graphic novels at the moment. But one that I loved recently, I'm just having a look at my book stack behind the computer. And there's This Was Our Pact by Ryan Andrews. I am obsessed with that book. It's just so beautiful. It made me like, yes, there it is. It made me smile like ear to ear. It's just like the most beautiful. I mean, the artwork is unbelievable, but the artwork and the story together is just like, it just had me warm and fuzzy inside. It's that kind of a book. And then also I recently read The Magic Fish by Trung. Sorry, I actually don't want to butcher his name. The Magic Fish is a stunning graphic novel as well. Just so beautiful. And yeah, I've been sharing both of those with the art kids that I teach. Every time I read like a book at their age level, I then pass it on to them. Like, you guys have to read this one. And they love that one too. So yeah, that's on my reading list at the moment.
Yeah. Do you both have any upcoming work that's coming out? Or are you working on anything?
Well, I'm working on the sequel. Sorry, my dog is being insane.
Yeah, someone did ask when the second book would be coming out, if you have like a date.
I believe early 2023 is when Run Home will come out, and that's what it's called. And you, Remy? Things happening?
Yeah, so I have a series of graphic novels for 6 to 9-year-old readers coming out next year, and the first 2 will come out in April. So, but I finished work on all of those.
Yeah, it's such a long wait until they come out. But I saw that they're about animals, which is so exciting. And I know both of us are animal lovers, so that's will be close to the heart as well, working on something like that.
I do have one final question for Alyssa, but I always love like asking authors what kind of music they were listening to while, working on these, or also like what music like goes along with the book. So do you have any like songs that you want to share?
Oh goodness, it's pretty. I would say my working playlist varies so much depending on like what I need to like lift me up to do it. I would say while working on Big Apple Diaries.
I feel like you should say Backstreet Boys because that featured in the book.
Yes, like there's so much. Like I would say if there's a soundtrack that goes with the book, it's the Backstreet Boys. But me actually working on the book, I probably listened to the Hamilton soundtrack like over and over and over again. So I like listening to things that I already know all the words to, and like they're just getting me there and I can't really think about it. But it's just like songs that I love. I do love show tunes. I also listened to a lot of reggaeton while I was working on it as well. And that like gets me like pumping to like get all the artwork done. So it's like a really wide range. What do you listen to, Remy?
Yeah, similar to you. It's like usually songs that I already know. And then sometimes I like to watch not music, but I like to have like a trashy TV show on. some reality TV show that I don't really have to pay that much attention to. But then if I lose track of it, I can still pick it up like later. That kind of show.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I've done that too. Yeah.
I love that. I do the same thing with work. I just have to have something on in the background. But yeah, do you have any recommendations for kids who want to get into drawing their own memoirs or drawing, their own fantasy worlds, their own shoes?
Gosh, I couldn't recommend diary writing enough. I think especially with the world today, I would, just highly encourage kids to write about the world around them so that they can reflect back on this time later and, remind themselves of this time and what a challenge it was. And, by the time they read it, I'm sure they would have overcome the challenge by then and can just have that reminder that, when things were really hard. And yeah, if you like drawing too, highly recommend adding some drawings to it. It could just be, what you had for breakfast that day, or it could be your shoe designs, whatever it is that, appeals to you. Yeah, it's really special to look back on. A lot of it, is cringy to look back on, but there are those kinds of, treasured little things in between that are really special. So definitely write it all down.
Remy, do you have any advice for kids looking into getting into drawing?
Yeah, so the diary thing is super awesome. So I've also always kept like diaries, not really, maybe not like detailing every day that I went through, but just whatever I have on my mind. And I still do it today. And then if you want to get into drawing, or if you want to get into comics, like specifically, I would say read a lot of comics. I think that is the big thing. Like, that you can learn how to not only just the different styles of drawing, and then also like the different ways people tell stories that sometimes you might not even think of, but then when you see other people do it, then you think, wow, okay, that's super awesome, maybe I could do something like that.
Yeah, definitely read comics. That's how I got into comics, because they weren't a part of my life and I just read so many of them. And yeah, everyone tells a story differently. There are no rules. You don't have to have everything in a comic panel box. It just can be in any way that you want it to look. Love it.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing all that wisdom. Yeah, is there anything else you want to say before we end? I know I just want to say thank you so much for being here, especially with the time difference. You both in Australia. So yeah, and I'm super excited to get my hands on this book. We haven't gotten it yet at Word Up, but we're hopefully getting it soon, and then I'll like immediately read it. Because yeah, I love graphic novels, and I want to consume as many as I can. But yeah, is there anything else you want to say?
Love it. I just want to say thank you. I just really appreciate this, and I love everything that Word Up does. And as soon as I can come back to New York, I'm going to be running up there into Washington Heights and making myself present in there. I'm just so excited to be able to come back and visit at some point, and just really appreciate you guys for hosting this. And I really appreciate Remy for joining in too. It's amazing to have someone else from this side of the world involved. It's really exciting. And so I feel like I'm here and I'm in New York, and everyone gets to, enjoy it with us. And I'm just really grateful, and hope everyone enjoys reading Big Apple Diaries and continues to send me their reactions to it, because I love reading it. Reading everyone's reactions, I mean. Thank you.
Thanks again so much, Carolina, and congratulations again, Alyssa. I can't wait to read the next book, although that will be 23. This is a long time later, but I can't wait.
Love it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Again, you can support us at wordupbooks.com. We'll be closed for next week, but we do have a 10% discount off just, because we're going to be closed. So if you want to get the book now, we do have the 10% off. It's Rest Up. And you can check us out on our website. And yeah, thank you so much for both of you for coming and being here and celebrating this book. This is very exciting. I've been excited since we first booked this event, so I'm glad it's finally happening. But yeah, thanks everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.